Karen stormed across the lawn, pointing at my dog and shouting for the cops. Within minutes, red and blue lights filled the street. But what Karen didn't know was that my dog wasn't just any dog. The officer's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Sir, do you have proof this dog is allowed to be here?" For a moment I said nothing. My hand hovered near my bag, but I wasn't going to show my hand just yet. Not while Karen was practically vibrating with smug triumph, her arms crossed like she had just won a war. Behind her, a few more neighbors trickled out from their houses, curiosity written on their faces. The sound of the police cruiser had pulled them in like moths to a flame. Suburban drama had always been her stage, and she thrived on attention. "Go on," Karen goaded, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Tell him you have proof. Because I'd love to see it." The officer adjusted his stance, looking at me then at the dog. His hand no longer rested on his holster, but he wasn't relaxed either. He was calculating, weighing every word. "Sir," he repeated, calmer this time but more deliberate, "what Karen here has reported is a violation of neighborhood rules and, according to her, a public safety concern. Before this goes any further, I need to know, is your dog registered, documented, or otherwise permitted under state law?" Karen gasped as if he'd already confirmed her story. "See? I told you. Dangerous animal. Probably not vaccinated either. Who knows what it could do?" I glanced down at my dog. He yawned, stretching his front legs and sitting back down as if the whole neighborhood hadn't gathered to watch him stand trial. "He's calm," I said firmly. "He's not aggressive. He's trained." Karen laughed, actually laughed, sharp and cutting. "Trained? Trained? Please, anyone can say that. I could say my cat's trained to fetch the mail." She leaned closer to the officer. "This is why we have rules. This is why people like me keep this community safe." The officer held up a hand. "Ma'am, let me handle this." But Karen didn't stop. She pointed at the crowd, waving her arms dramatically. "You all see this, right? You see what we're dealing with? Dogs today, who knows what tomorrow? Pit bulls, wolves, God knows what else. If we let him get away with this, none of us will be safe." Her words sparked murmurs. Some neighbors nodded along, uncertain. Others shook their heads, whispering things like, "It's just a dog," or "Karen's at it again." The officer turned to me again. "Sir, I'll ask one more time. Do you have documentation for this dog?" My throat tightened. The paper was in my bag, yes. But timing mattered. I knew revealing it too early would cut the tension short, and right now Karen needed to feel like she had the upper hand. Because the fall, when it came, would be all the more satisfying. Still, I could see the scales tipping. Too many eyes on me. Too much weight pressing in. I decided to buy time. "Officer, before I answer that, I'd like to clarify something. HOA rules don't override federal law, correct?" The officer's brows lifted slightly. "That's correct. HOAs can set policies, but they don't trump state or federal regulations." Karen's smugness flickered for just a second, but she recovered fast. "Don't let him confuse you with legal mumbo-jumbo. This is a safety issue. And HOA rules say no dogs. Period." "Ma'am," the officer said again, his tone sharper, "I need you to let me handle the questioning." Karen pressed her lips into a tight line, but her eyes glowed with rage. She wasn't about to give up her starring role. By now, half a dozen neighbors were out on their porches or sidewalks. A man with a baseball cap leaned on his fence, sipping coffee like it was primetime television. A mother with 2 kids pulled them closer to her side, her eyes darting nervously to my dog even though he hadn't so much as twitched toward anyone. The officer's radio crackled faintly. He tapped it, glancing back at his car. "We may need backup here. Too many people gathering." Karen's smile returned, wide and victorious. "Backup?" she repeated, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Oh yes, call backup. This man is endangering all of us." Gasps fluttered through the onlookers. A few people whispered, "Backup? For what?" I could feel my patience thinning. "Officer," I said, voice steady, "my dog is calm, controlled, and poses no threat. He's on a leash and I am fully within my rights." Karen clapped her hands once, sharp as a whip crack. "Rights? You don't have rights here. The HOA has rules. Rules everyone agreed to when we moved in. You signed them same as I did. And now you're breaking them." The officer glanced at me again. "Do you have those documents or not?" I inhaled slowly, feeling every eye lock tighter onto me. "Yes," I said finally. "I do." Karen stepped forward, eyes gleaming. "Then show us. Let's see if you're really as clever as you think." I reached into my bag. My fingers brushed the folded papers, the weight of the truth waiting to be revealed. But instead of pulling them out, I paused, resting my hand there. Before I do, I said, meeting Karen's stare, I want to make sure everyone understands something. This isn't about a dog. This is about control. This is about someone abusing power just because they think they can. Karen's face turned crimson. Abuse of power? I am protecting this neighborhood. The officer frowned, glancing between us. All right, enough. Sir, show me the documentation now, or we'll have to escalate this further. The murmurs grew louder. Neighbors leaned forward, hungry for the reveal. Karen's grin widened again. She could practically taste victory. And then, just as I started to pull the folded paper free, the officer's radio blared to life. All units report. Backup required at Maple and Rosewood. Possible disturbance escalating. The officer's eyes flicked to his car, then back to me. He raised a hand to his radio but didn't speak yet. The crowd buzzed. Karen gasped dramatically, clasping her hands. See? Even the police know this is dangerous. The officer turned back toward me, his face serious, his voice low but firm. Sir, I'm going to need you to step aside while I decide what to do next. The weight of the entire street pressed in. My dog sat patiently, his vest still tucked away in my bag, waiting for the moment everything would shift. And then, as the officer took one step closer, his words dropped like a hammer. If you can't prove right now that your dog belongs here, I'll have no choice but to remove him from the property. The officer's words rang out like a verdict. If you can't prove right now that your dog belongs here, I'll have no choice but to remove him from the property. Gasps rippled through the gathering crowd. Karen's face lit up like she'd just been crowned queen of the neighborhood. She clasped her hands in front of her chest and let out a loud, satisfied laugh. Oh, thank you, officer. Finally, someone is taking this seriously, she cried, her voice carrying down the block. This man has been breaking the rules for weeks. That animal is a constant menace. Barking all night, scaring children, destroying lawns, you name it. My head snapped up. That's not true, I said firmly. My dog doesn't bark at night. He hasn't damaged anyone's property. And he's never scared a soul here. Karen gasped as though I'd just slapped her. She spun dramatically toward the crowd. Do you all hear this? He's calling me a liar. Some neighbors exchanged uneasy glances. Others avoided eye contact altogether. A few whispered behind their hands, clearly enjoying the show but not eager to step into the line of fire. The officer held up a hand. All right, one at a time. Ma'am, what exactly are you accusing him of? Karen wasted no time. She rattled off her list as if she'd been rehearsing it all week. First of all, she said, pointing a manicured finger at my dog, that beast is not on the HOA-approved list of pets. We all agreed, no dogs allowed. It's in the bylaws. Second, I've personally heard it growl at children. My neighbor's little boy was terrified walking past here last Tuesday. Third, there are scratch marks near my fence. I have no doubt this animal is responsible. The officer scribbled something into his notepad. My stomach tightened. It didn't matter if none of it was true. On paper, it would look like a pile of evidence against me. That's not true, I repeated, keeping my voice calm but firm. My dog has never been aggressive toward children or anyone. He's well trained. As for the fence, I can guarantee he didn't touch it. We don't even walk on that side of the block. Karen scoffed. Oh, please. That's exactly what someone guilty would say. You think you can talk your way out of everything. Well, not this time. Not with the law here. The officer frowned slightly but didn't dismiss her. He turned back to me. Sir, she's given me specific complaints. Do you have anything, witnesses, documents, anything at all, that can prove otherwise? The crowd pressed closer. A man in a baseball cap muttered, Karen's always exaggerating, but too quietly for the officer to hear. Another neighbor, a woman clutching her toddler, shook her head and whispered, I don't know, that dog looks big. Karen caught that and seized it instantly. See? Even she feels unsafe. This is what I've been saying all along. The woman's eyes widened. I didn't say unsafe, I just... Karen cut her off. You don't need to explain, honey. We all know the truth. The officer tapped his pen against his notepad, eyes narrowing at me. His tone grew firmer. Sir, I'm going to ask again. Do you have any documentation on you? My fingers tightened around the strap of my bag. The vest and papers were right there. I could end this whole thing in a heartbeat. But revealing it too soon meant Karen would never face the full weight of her own lies. She'd twist the truth, make it seem like she'd simply been misinformed. No, her arrogance had to peak before the fall. I have documentation, I said carefully. But before I show you, I need to point out that these accusations are baseless. Karen let out a shrill laugh. Baseless? You call the testimony of your neighbors baseless? She gestured around dramatically. Ask any of them. They've all seen it. The officer looked toward the crowd. Anyone else have complaints about this dog? Silence fell. A few people shifted uncomfortably. One man scratched his neck, clearly avoiding eye contact. Finally, the woman with the toddler cleared her throat. I don't have a complaint, she said softly. I just don't like dogs in general. That's all. The officer nodded, jotting something down. Karen, however, was fuming. Unbelievable, she hissed. You're all too scared to admit it, too scared to speak the truth. But I'm not scared. She whirled back toward me, eyes blazing. You don't belong here with that mutt, and I'm going to make sure of it. My dog shifted beside me, resting his head against my leg, sensing the tension. His calmness in the face of this storm was almost poetic. The officer's radio crackled again, reminding him of the time. He sighed, tucking the notepad into his pocket. Sir, he said, his tone sharper now, this is your last chance. Do you have paperwork, registration, certification, anything that proves this dog is allowed under the law? If not, I'll have to proceed with removal. Karen's eyes glowed. Yes. Finally. My heart pounded, but I kept my voice steady. Yes, officer. I do. The crowd leaned in, eyes widening. Karen held her breath, anticipation all over her face. I slowly reached into my bag, feeling the weight of the folded vest and papers inside. My fingers brushed against the fabric, the letters hidden but ready to be revealed. The officer watched closely. The neighbors whispered. Karen's smile widened. And just as I began to pull something free, just as the moment of truth hung in the air, Karen shouted at the top of her lungs. Wait. Don't believe whatever nonsense he's about to pull. He's lying, I know it. The officer raised a hand, his eyes locked on mine. Sir, he said, his voice low and commanding. Show me now. The crowd fell silent, every heartbeat echoing in the still air. My hand tightened on the vest inside my bag. The moment of truth was seconds away. The air felt thick, like the whole street was holding its breath. Karen's shrill voice had turned our quiet cul-de-sac into a courtroom, and the officer was the judge standing between us. I kept my hand near my bag, fingers brushing the folded vest inside. The truth was there waiting, but the timing wasn't right yet. Karen hadn't reached her peak, and she was climbing fast. Don't you dare trust him, Karen said, her voice trembling with self-righteous fury. He's probably carrying forged papers or some fake registration card. People like him will say anything to get their way. The officer's brow furrowed. Ma'am, I need you to stop interrupting. Karen ignored him, spinning toward the gathering neighbors. This is exactly why we have rules. If I don't stand up for this community, who will? Today it's one dog. Tomorrow it could be 3, 5, who knows what kind of dangerous animals running loose among our children. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Some nodded along, wary but not brave enough to speak up. Others rolled their eyes, muttering that Karen had lost it again. I heard one man say under his breath, every week it's something new with her. Another neighbor whispered back, yeah, but this time the cops are here. The officer sighed, adjusting his stance. He had one hand resting near his radio, the other tapping against his notepad. His eyes darted toward the cruiser parked at the curb, its lights still flashing across the quiet lawns. He didn't want this circus to keep growing. But it was too late. More people spilled from their driveways, drawn by the noise and the flashing red and blue glow. A teenage boy leaned against his bike at the corner, filming everything with his phone. A woman with gardening gloves still on clutched a watering can as she stepped closer, eyes wide. Karen loved it. She spread her arms like she was commanding an audience. Do you all want to live in a neighborhood where the rules mean nothing? She shouted. Where anyone can just do whatever they want and put the rest of us in danger. Because that's exactly what's happening right now. Her words struck sparks. Someone muttered, she's got a point, but another quickly countered, the dog's just sitting there. Doesn't look dangerous to me. The tension was becoming less about the dog and more about a neighborhood divided. The officer raised his voice, cutting through the chatter. Everyone quiet. Let me handle this. The murmurs faded slightly, but the crowd stayed. Their eyes followed every twitch, every word. Karen folded her arms, smug again. Go ahead, officer. Do your job. Get this animal out of here before something happens. I kept my voice calm, though the pressure in my chest was heavy. He's not a threat. He's trained, controlled, and I have every right to walk him here. Karen scoffed. Rights? Please. You think you're some special exception? If we all started ignoring the HOA, this neighborhood would fall apart in weeks. It would be chaos. I turned slightly, addressing the crowd instead of her. Chaos isn't caused by dogs sitting quietly on leashes. Chaos is caused by people turning neighbors into enemies. A few heads nodded. A man whispered, "He's right," but Karen drowned him out with another shout. "Don't fall for his act. He's just trying to twist the truth. He's dangerous, and so is that dog." The officer's radio crackled again. He pressed the button briefly, listening, then released it. His eyes swept the growing crowd. "We might need backup here," he muttered, mostly to himself, but Karen heard it. She gasped loudly, clutching her chest. "Backup? Yes, yes, please. We're all at risk here." She turned to the crowd again. "You heard him. Even the police agree it's dangerous." Her theatrics sent another ripple through the neighbors. Some frowned, unconvinced, but others seemed unsettled. A mother pulled her child a little closer, as though my calm, silent dog might suddenly lunge. I gritted my teeth but held my ground. The officer's eyes locked back on me. His tone was firmer now, his patience thinning. "Sir, the situation is escalating. I need you to present proof now, or I'll have to escalate my response." The crowd murmured again. The boy with the phone zoomed in, whispering to someone off-screen. Karen leaned forward, voice low but venomous. "This is it. You're done." I met her gaze steadily. "Not yet." Her smugness faltered just for a second. I reached slowly into my bag again. The crowd leaned forward, breathless. Karen's grin returned. The officer shifted closer, ready. My fingers closed around the folded vest. I pulled it partway out, just enough for the edge of the dark fabric to show. Karen's eyes gleamed. "Huh? A piece of cloth? That's your proof." The officer narrowed his gaze, waiting. The neighbors whispered louder. The tension coiled tighter and tighter, like a spring ready to snap. And then the officer lifted his radio, pressing the button this time. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Requesting backup at Maplewood Lane. Crowd is escalating." The crowd erupted in gasps. Karen clapped her hands together like she'd won a prize. "You hear that?" she shouted. "Backup. For him." She pointed at me, her voice echoing. "This man and his dangerous dog." The officer released the radio and turned back to me, his expression grim. "Sir, if you don't show me valid documentation in the next minute, I'll have no choice but to detain you and remove the animal." Every head swiveled toward me. My bag felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My dog sat steady, quiet, waiting for me to make the move. I could feel the moment closing in, the pressure building. And then Karen stepped closer, her voice rising like a siren. "Show him then. Show us all. Or admit you've been lying this whole time." The crowd leaned forward as one. Even the officer's stance tightened. I pulled the vest a little further out, the letters still hidden in the fold. The whispers grew. Karen smirked wider. And just before I could unfold it, the officer barked, sharp and final. "Sir, I won't ask again. Now or never." The officer's words cracked across the air like thunder. "Sir, now or never." The crowd froze. Neighbors clutched their phones tighter, eyes darting between me, the officer, and Karen. Children peeked from behind their parents' legs, sensing the drama even if they didn't understand it. Karen, of course, thrived on it. She stepped forward, her sandals clacking against the pavement, arms folded across her chest. Her smile was wide, victorious, her voice full of venom. "You heard him," she sneered. "Hand it over. Or better yet, officer, take him in already. That animal shouldn't be here another second." The officer held up a hand, keeping her back. "Ma'am, please. Let me handle this." But Karen only grew louder. "No. I won't stand here and watch this man put our families in danger. That dog is a menace, and if you don't act now, officer, you're failing all of us." Her words sparked a fresh ripple of murmurs through the crowd. Some neighbors nodded nervously while others rolled their eyes. A man muttered, "Always has to make it bigger than it is," but Karen seized on the nervous ones, feeding on their doubt. "Don't you all see?" she shouted, spinning to address them directly. "If the police need backup for one dog, what does that tell you? This is serious. This is dangerous. That thing could snap any second and rip into someone's child." Gasps fluttered. A woman grabbed her son's hand tighter. My blood boiled, but I forced myself to stay calm. My dog sat at my side, calm and steady, as if he knew this circus wasn't worth reacting to. His leash rested loosely in my grip, slack as ever. "He hasn't moved," I said firmly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Not once. He hasn't barked, hasn't lunged, hasn't growled. The only danger here is lies." Karen's face flushed red, her composure cracking for a moment. Then she jabbed her finger at me again. Lies? You dare call me a liar in front of my neighbors? In front of law enforcement? The officer's patience was wearing thin. His tone turned sharp, official. Enough. Sir, this is your final chance. If you don't provide documentation right now, I'll have no choice but to issue a citation and remove the dog from the premises. Refusal to comply could lead to charges. The weight of those words hit me hard. My chest tightened. I could see it in the neighbors' eyes. They thought this was it. Karen practically vibrated with excitement. Yes, she said, her voice cracking with glee. Do it, officer. Remove him. Arrest him if you have to. That's the only way he'll learn. She leaned closer, her voice dropping just enough for only me and the officer to hear. You thought you could beat me, didn't you? Thought you could sneak around, bend the rules? But no one beats Karen. No one. I looked at her, at the gleam in her eyes, the smugness radiating off her. And for the first time that day I let a small smile tug at my lips. Her confidence faltered. Just a flicker, but enough. I'm not sneaking around, I said softly. I'm just waiting for the right moment. Karen blinked, confusion cutting through her triumph. What are you? Before she could finish, the officer stepped in. Sir. Show me. Now. I nodded. Slowly, deliberately, I crouched down, setting my bag on the pavement. The crowd leaned forward, every pair of eyes fixed on me. Even the boy with the phone filming stopped whispering commentary, holding his breath for the reveal. My dog tilted his head, curious but calm. I unzipped the bag, my fingers brushing the folded vest inside. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Not because I doubted what I held, but because of how sweet the silence would be when the truth finally came out. Karen's voice broke the hush. This is a waste of time. Officer, just cuff him and take that mutt away already. The officer shot her a glare, but she didn't flinch. Her hunger for control was too strong. I pulled the fabric free, just enough for the dark cloth to show again. The neighbors craned their necks, whispering guesses. Karen snorted. A rag, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. That's your proof? A dirty rag. The officer's eyes narrowed. He could see there was more, but he wasn't sure yet. I let the folded vest dangle from my fingers for a moment, teasing the truth, letting the tension thicken. The crowd was utterly silent now, waiting. Karen stepped closer, close enough that I could see the sweat beading on her forehead. You can't fool me, she hissed. No piece of cloth will change the rules. You're done here. Her words sparked something in me. The calm patience I'd held all morning shifted into resolve. You're right about one thing, I said, my voice steady, loud enough for the whole street to hear. This isn't just a piece of cloth. It's the truth you've been trying to bury. Karen frowned, her mouth opening to retort. But before I could unfold the vest, the officer stepped forward, his voice sharp. Enough. Sir, if you don't hand it over now, I'll be forced to act. The crowd gasped. Karen's eyes gleamed again, her smirk returning. She leaned back, arms folded, waiting for what she thought would be my humiliation. I tightened my grip on the folded vest, lifting it higher so all could see. The letters were still hidden in the crease, but they were close, so close, to being revealed. The street was silent, the moment hanging heavy in the summer air. And then, just as I began to unfold it, the officer raised his hand, stopping me mid-motion. His voice was low, firm and final. Sir, if this isn't what you say it is, I'll have no choice but to place you under arrest. The weight of his words dropped over the crowd like a hammer. Karen's grin stretched wider than ever. And there I stood, the truth in my hand, the entire neighborhood waiting. The officer's warning still rang in the air. Sir, if this isn't what you say it is, I'll have no choice but to place you under arrest. Every neighbor held their breath. Even the kids, usually too restless to stand still, clung to their parents, wide-eyed. The only sound was the faint chirp of a sprinkler in someone's yard and the buzz of a lawnmower that shut off the moment the operator realized what was unfolding. And through it all, my dog sat calm, steady, unbothered. His brown eyes looked up at me with a trust that both grounded me and reminded me why I couldn't let Karen win this. I straightened slowly, the folded vest in my hand. The black fabric looked unremarkable at first glance, just another piece of gear. But I could feel its weight, not physical but symbolic. Proof. Protection. Truth. Karen's laugh shattered the silence. Oh, this is rich, she cackled. You've been wasting everyone's time for that? What even is that? A blanket? A dirty rag? You expect us to believe that's proof? The officer glanced at her but didn't interrupt. His eyes stayed locked on me. He wasn't dismissing her, but he wasn't convinced by her either. He was waiting. I took a step closer, holding the vest higher. The crowd leaned in, straining for a glimpse of the hidden letters inside the fold. "This isn't just fabric," I said, my voice steady. "This is the truth. And the truth doesn't care about HOA rules." Gasps whispered through the crowd. Someone murmured, "What does he mean?" Another whispered back, "Looks like a uniform or something." Karen waved her arms, trying to snuff out the whispers. "Don't listen to him. He's stalling, making up some ridiculous story. That dog is illegal and you all know it." But her voice didn't carry the same dominance anymore. The crowd was shifting. Curiosity had cracked through her control. The officer stepped closer. "Sir, unfold it. Show us." I crouched beside my dog, letting the vest dangle low for a moment. He leaned into me, tail swishing once against the pavement as though he sensed the shift coming. I slipped the straps gently around his shoulders, careful, deliberate. Karen gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "What are you doing? You can't just dress him up and pretend. This is absurd." The officer didn't move. He just watched, eyes sharp, taking in every detail. One by one the straps clicked into place. The crowd grew quieter, as though the act of outfitting the dog with something was almost ritualistic. Ordinary fabric transforming into something more. Karen's face twisted in fury. "This is a joke. Are you all really falling for this? It's a costume, nothing more. Don't you see? He's trying to trick us." Her voice cracked on the last words, betraying the fear beneath her bluster. The first strap tightened. The second. And finally, I smoothed the fabric down across my dog's back. The folded cloth still covered the bold lettering, but the outline was clear now. A vest. Purposeful. Official. The murmurs swelled again. "Is that? Looks like one of those service vests." "No way. If it is, Karen's done." Karen spun on the neighbors, pointing wildly. "Don't you dare. Don't you dare take his side. He's bluffing, I know it. Dogs like that don't belong here. They're dangerous. There." She stopped mid-sentence as my hand tugged the final flap of fabric into place. The crease was still folded, the letters still hidden. But everyone could see it now. This wasn't some rag or blanket. It was official gear. The officer's eyes narrowed. His tone dropped lower, firmer. "Sir, finish it. Show us what it says." The crowd hushed instantly. You could have heard a pin drop. Karen shook her head violently, almost desperate now. "No, no, no. Don't let him. Don't give him the stage. He's lying, he's making a fool out of all of us." But her voice no longer commanded the crowd. Her panic only made her look smaller. I rested a hand on my dog's back, steadying him. His posture was perfect, his calmness almost regal, as though he knew this moment belonged to him. I looked back at the officer, then at the neighbors, then finally at Karen. "You wanted proof," I said. "You demanded it. Well, here it is." I slipped my fingers beneath the fold, gripping the flap of fabric hiding the letters. The moment stretched, thick with tension. Karen's face was pale now, her eyes darting wildly between the vest and the crowd. I tugged slightly, just enough for the edge of a bold white letter to appear. The crowd inhaled as one. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Karen stumbled back a step. No, this can't." But before I revealed the full word, before the letters blazed across the vest for all to see, I paused. Because silence was power. The officer's gaze was steady, his patience thinning but his curiosity undeniable. "Sir, reveal it." The crowd pressed closer, every phone camera tilted, every breath caught. Karen's voice broke, high and shaky. "Don't you dare. Don't you dare." And with my fingers pinching the flap, the first bold letter barely visible, I froze. The truth was right there. But I wasn't going to give it up until the exact right second. So I let the tension hang, my hand poised, the crowd buzzing, the officer waiting, Karen unraveling. The neighborhood had never been this silent, this united in suspense. And then, as the seconds stretched unbearably long, the officer's voice dropped into a command that cut like steel. "Finish it. Now." The officer's voice was firm, final. "Finish it. Now." The crowd leaned forward as if drawn by invisible strings. My hand gripped the flap of fabric, my dog sitting proudly, steady as a soldier awaiting orders. Karen shook her head violently, her lips curling into a snarl, but her eyes betrayed panic. "No, don't you dare," she whispered, though her voice cracked under the weight of her fear. With one slow, deliberate motion, I unfolded the flap. The bold white letters screamed against the black fabric. "Service dog." Gasps shot through the crowd. A wave of whispers rippled outward like a shockwave. "Oh my God. It really is." He's a service dog. The boy with the phone lowered it for a second, stunned. The mother who had clutched her son gasped, her grip loosening as she stared at the vest. Even the neighbors who had been skeptical now stood in stunned silence. The officer's eyes locked on the vest. His posture shifted instantly. Where moments ago he had been stern and cautious, now he straightened, his jaw tightening with realization. Karen's face drained of color. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, but no words came. Her bravado evaporated in seconds. I rose to my feet, my voice steady, calm. You wanted proof. There it is. Federal law protects service animals. HOA rules don't override that. And my dog, my partner, isn't just allowed here, he's protected here. The officer gave a slow nod, his gaze cutting sharply toward Karen. Ma'am, he said, his tone shifting to authority, do you realize what you've just done? Karen stumbled back a step, clutching at her cardigan as though it could shield her. No, this doesn't mean anything. Anyone can buy a vest online. It doesn't make it real. The officer's voice was sharp. That's a federally recognized vest. And unless you'd like to challenge federal disability law right here in front of your neighbors, I suggest you stop talking. The neighbors erupted into murmurs again, this time aimed at her. She really called the cops over a service dog? Unbelievable. She had no idea, did she? Karen spun, desperate. Don't listen to him. This is a trick, it has to be. He's lying, he's faking this whole thing. But the more she shouted, the smaller she seemed. The crowd wasn't rallying to her this time. They were pulling back, shaking their heads, whispering with disgust. I crouched to adjust the vest on my dog's shoulders, smoothing it down so every bold letter gleamed in the fading sunlight. He sat straighter, ears perked as though he understood the moment. The officer turned back to me. His voice was measured now, calmer, respectful. Sir, thank you for your patience. I can confirm this changes everything. Karen gasped, almost choking on the words. What? No. You can't just believe him. He's breaking the rules. I'm telling you, the HOA rules say no dogs. The officer cut her off, his tone firm. Federal law supersedes HOA rules. Service animals are protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. If you knowingly called the police with false claims against one, that's a serious problem. The crowd buzzed again. A man chuckled under his breath, shaking his head. Karen's done for. Karen's face twisted, rage and desperation battling across her features. No, I was protecting us. I was protecting the community. That's my job. The officer stepped closer to her, his voice low but carrying. Your job isn't to lie to law enforcement. Do you understand how serious filing a false report is? Karen froze, her confidence finally cracking. For the first time since the circus began, she looked small. Her eyes darted to the neighbors, searching for backup, but found only disapproving stares. I straightened, resting a hand on my dog's back. All this because you couldn't mind your own business. Because you wanted control. Her head snapped toward me, her voice shrill. Control? I was trying to keep order. I was trying to protect everyone from you. But her words fell flat. The neighbors weren't nodding anymore. They were pulling back, whispering louder, some even laughing under their breath. The officer's gaze stayed locked on her. Ma'am, we're going to have a serious conversation about your actions here today. Karen shook her head frantically, stepping back. No, I didn't know. I didn't know. The officer's eyes narrowed. That's not an excuse. The tension shifted, the balance of power tilting entirely. The crowd's whispers grew bolder now. She went too far this time. Calling the cops for nothing. She's embarrassed herself. Karen's breathing quickened. Her bravado was gone. Her voice trembled, weak. I was just following the rules. I looked around at the neighbors, then back at her. My voice carried steady and strong. Rules don't matter when they're used as weapons. You wanted me humiliated. Instead, you've humiliated yourself. Karen's lip trembled. Her eyes darted desperately toward the officer again. You won't really press charges, will you? I didn't mean. The officer held up a hand, silencing her. That depends on whether the gentleman here chooses to pursue charges. Gasps rippled through the crowd again. Every eye turned to me. Karen froze, her mouth falling open, her hands clasped tight together like she was praying. The officer faced me fully. His voice was even professional. Sir, you're within your rights. Would you like to press charges for the false report? The street went silent. Even the boy with the phone stopped recording for a second. Karen's face twisted with fear, all traces of smugness gone. Her eyes locked onto mine, wide and pleading. You wouldn't, she whispered, her voice cracking. You wouldn't do that to me? And in that silence, with the officer's question hanging heavy, the entire neighborhood waited for my answer. The silence stretched heavy after the officer's question. Would you like to press charges for the false report? The crowd was frozen, every neighbor waiting for my answer. Karen's eyes locked onto mine, wide and desperate, her voice trembling. You wouldn't do that to me, she whispered, her earlier arrogance gone. I was only trying to help. I didn't know. But the officer cut in before I could respond. His voice was sharp, no nonsense. Ma'am, ignorance of the law is not a defense. You filed a false police report. You wasted department resources. And you attempted to misuse the HOA's authority to harass a neighbor. That's serious business. Karen gasped, clutching her chest. Harass? I wasn't harassing anyone. I was protecting the community. That's what I've always done. The officer shook his head. No. What you did was escalate a non-issue into a police matter. And if you think hiding behind the HOA makes you untouchable, you're mistaken. Federal law is crystal clear. Service animals are protected. Period. The neighbors murmured louder now, emboldened by his words. He's right. She always thinks she runs the place. Finally, someone said it. Karen's face reddened, her voice rising in panic. No, you don't understand. The HOA has rules, written rules. I've enforced them for years. Everyone has to follow them, that's the whole point of having an HOA. The officer's eyes narrowed, his tone like steel. And HOA rules do not and cannot override federal law. You called law enforcement under false pretenses. That's a criminal offense. Do you understand? Karen stumbled back a step, shaking her head. No, this can't be happening. I stayed quiet, my hand resting on my dog's vest. He sat tall and proud, his calm presence a stark contrast to Karen's unraveling composure. The officer continued, his words steady, deliberate. Let me spell it out. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, service animals are permitted in housing and public spaces. That means your HOA's no pets rule cannot apply to this dog. What you attempted was discrimination, and you backed it with a false emergency call. That's 2 violations stacked against you. Gasps rippled again through the crowd. A neighbor muttered, discrimination? Oh, she's in deep now. Karen's lip trembled. She spun toward the neighbors, arms outstretched. You believe me, don't you? You know I was only trying to keep order. That's all I've ever done, kept this place safe, kept it respectable. But no one stepped forward. No one defended her. A few shook their heads. One man crossed his arms, glaring. Another woman muttered, safe? You've been terrorizing us for years. Karen froze, her eyes darting desperately between them. For the first time, she seemed to realize that the audience she thought she controlled had turned against her. She turned back to the officer, her voice cracking. You're not really going to arrest me, are you? I mean, this is ridiculous. I'm the HOA president. The officer's expression hardened. Your title doesn't put you above the law. Her jaw dropped, stunned. But I've served this community for 6 years. I've given my time, my energy. By intimidating your neighbors and abusing your position, the officer interrupted. His tone was measured but cutting. And now, by abusing law enforcement, that ends today. Karen's hands shook as she clutched her sweater tighter around her shoulders. She looked smaller than she ever had, stripped of the confidence she'd wielded like a weapon. The officer took one step closer. His voice dropped lower, but it carried to every corner of the crowd. Ma'am, I'll ask you plainly, would you like to continue this conversation here in front of your neighbors, or would you prefer we continue it at the station? The crowd collectively inhaled, the weight of his words settling over them like a thunderclap. Karen's mouth opened, then closed again. She swayed slightly as though the ground had shifted beneath her. The neighbors whispered furiously now. She's finished. She brought this on herself. She thought she could push everyone around. Karen raised her hands, trembling. Please, you don't understand. I didn't mean any harm. The officer's voice was ice. Intent doesn't erase actions. You made a false report. You tried to use the law to bully your neighbor. That's harm. She shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes now. I was just trying to do what's right. No, I said softly, finally breaking my silence. My voice carried in the quiet. You were trying to do what made you feel powerful. Karen's gaze snapped to me, desperate, pleading. Don't let him take me in. Please, tell him I didn't mean it. Tell him you won't press charges. The officer raised an eyebrow, glancing at me. The decision hung heavy in the air. But before I could respond, he turned back to her, his voice crisp and unyielding. Ma'am, enough stalling. Do you want to continue this conversation here, or in custody? The crowd went dead silent. Karen's face crumpled, caught between fight and surrender, every neighbor watching her downfall unfold in real time. The officer's words hit like a hammer. Do you want to continue this conversation here, or in custody? The crowd's silence was suffocating. Not a lawnmower hummed, not a car passed. It felt as if the entire neighborhood had been suspended in time, waiting for Karen's next move. Her face was drained of color, her eyes darting between the officer, me, and the cluster of neighbors she once ruled over like a queen. But there were no allies left. No sympathetic nods. Just crossed arms, shaking heads, and whispers filled with satisfaction. Karen swallowed hard, her voice trembling. Please, I don't need to go to a station. This has all been blown out of proportion. I didn't mean to cause harm. The officer's gaze was sharp. You didn't just cause harm, ma'am, you weaponized the law. You made a false report. You created panic. And you attempted to strip a disabled resident of his rights. Do you understand the seriousness of that? Her lips trembled. I didn't know. I thought I was doing what was right. I was protecting the neighborhood. The murmurs grew louder now, no longer whispers but voices of resentment unleashed. Protecting us? More like harassing us. She's been pulling this stunt for years. Always threatening fines, calling people out, making us miserable. Karen flinched with every comment, her shoulders hunching lower, her voice shrinking. That's not true. I was just keeping order. That's what an HOA president does. But the crowd wasn't buying it. One man in a baseball cap finally spoke up, louder this time. You fine me for leaving my trash can out for an extra hour? You made my wife cry over it. You think that's keeping order? Another neighbor, the mother with the toddler, chimed in, her voice shaking with anger. You yelled at my kids for drawing chalk on the sidewalk. Called it vandalism. They were 6 years old, Karen. The weight of years of resentment poured out like floodgates opening. The neighborhood had been waiting for this moment, and now they had their chance. Karen's hands trembled as she tried to hold her ground. I was just enforcing the rules. That's all I ever did. If you people don't like rules, maybe you shouldn't live in this community. But her words fell flat. The crowd erupted in scoffs, head shakes, bitter laughter. Her power was gone, crumbling in real time. The officer raised a hand, silencing the noise. His voice cut through like steel. Enough. This isn't about trash cans or chalk drawings. This is about the fact that you knowingly filed a false police report. That carries legal consequences. Karen's eyes widened. Legal consequences? But I'm the HOA president. Doesn't that mean anything? His stare was unflinching. It means nothing here. You're just another resident. And one who's dangerously close to facing charges. Karen's breathing grew shallow. Tears brimmed in her eyes now, her voice breaking. Please don't do this. I didn't know the dog was. I didn't know it was a service animal. I was just assuming power you didn't have. I cut in, my voice calm but cutting. I let my words hang in the quiet. You weren't protecting anyone, Karen. You were protecting your ego. The neighbors nodded, murmurs of agreement rippling through them. Karen spun toward me, her hands clasped together, begging now. Please don't let them take me in. Don't press charges. You don't understand, I've worked so hard for this neighborhood. Everything I've done has been about control, I interrupted again, my tone steady. And today control slipped out of your hands. The officer shifted, his posture commanding. Sir, I need your answer. Do you wish to press charges for the false report? Karen gasped, her knees buckling slightly. She clutched at the air as though she could physically hold on to what little authority she had left. Please, I'm begging you. Don't let him do this. Don't let this ruin me. I'll resign from the HOA, I'll stop bothering you, I'll do anything, just don't let him press charges. The crowd murmured louder. Someone scoffed, about time. Another muttered, should have resigned years ago. The officer's eyes never left me. It's your call. My dog shifted beside me, pressing his head lightly against my leg, grounding me. The vest gleamed in the fading light, bold and undeniable. Service dog. The neighborhood waited. Karen trembled. The officer stood steady, the law behind him. And then Karen broke completely. She dropped to her knees on the pavement, tears streaking her cheeks, her voice hoarse. Please? I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Just don't let him press charges. The sight shocked the crowd. The once dominant HOA president, the woman who had lorded over everyone with smug rules and fines, was now crumpled on the ground, begging. The officer's face was unmoved. His voice steady, official. "Sir, I'll ask you one last time. Do you want to press charges?" Every head turned toward me. Every phone camera tilted higher. The weight of the moment was unbearable, the entire neighborhood frozen in suspense. Karen sobbed, her voice breaking through the silence. "Please, don't." And with her words echoing across the stunned street, all eyes fell on me. The officer's words hung heavy in the air. "Sir, do you want to press charges?" Every eye was on me. The crowd was silent, waiting for my judgment. My dog sat at my side, steady and proud, his vest gleaming under the glow of the cruiser's flashing lights. Karen was still on her knees, sobbing into her hands. Just hours ago, she had been the loudest, most powerful voice on this street. Now she was broken, begging, her authority shattered in front of the very people she once ruled over. I inhaled slowly, letting the silence stretch. The truth was, I could press charges. I could watch her led away in handcuffs, a fitting end for all the torment she'd put this neighborhood through. Part of me wanted that, wanted her to feel the full sting of consequences. But another part of me saw something else. She was already ruined. Her pride, her reputation, her standing in this neighborhood, they were gone. Everyone could see it. Everyone would remember this moment long after the lights faded. I exhaled. "No," I said finally, my voice steady. "I won't press charges." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's head jerked up, eyes wide, disbelief written across her tear-streaked face. The officer's brows lifted slightly. "You're certain?" I nodded. "Yes. She's humiliated herself enough. Everyone here saw the truth. That's punishment enough." Karen sobbed again, relief flooding her expression. Thank you," she whispered, collapsing back onto her heels. But I wasn't finished. I turned, my voice rising so the entire neighborhood could hear. This was never about my dog. This was about control. About someone who thought they could twist the rules to their own power. But today proved something important. Rules mean nothing when they're used to hurt people instead of protect them. The crowd murmured in agreement. Neighbors nodded, some even clapped softly. The woman with the toddler said aloud, "He's right. We've all let her push us around for too long." The officer gave a short nod, his tone respectful. "Sir, you handled this with more patience than most. You were within your rights to press charges. Choosing not to speaks volumes." Karen, still on the ground, whispered again, "Thank you," but her voice carried no weight anymore. No one rushed to help her up. No one offered her sympathy. The officer faced her one last time. "Ma'am, though he's chosen not to press charges, you should understand something clearly. If you pull a stunt like this again, false reports, harassment, discrimination, you won't get off so lightly. Consider this your warning." Karen nodded frantically, wiping her face with shaking hands. Yes, I understand." But the neighbors weren't done. "Step down from the HO," someone shouted. "Yeah, we're done with you leading us. You've embarrassed us all." The murmurs turned into a chorus of agreement. Karen's eyes widened again, fear overtaking her. She shook her head, mumbling, No, I can't. I've given years to this community." But no one wanted her leadership anymore. The tide had turned. The officer gave me a final nod, then gestured toward the crowd. "All right, folks, let's clear it up. Nothing more to see here." One by one, the neighbors drifted back toward their homes. But their whispers carried in the air. She got what she deserved. Finally, someone stood up to her. That was incredible. I knelt, patting my dog's head. He leaned into me, calm and steady as ever, the quiet hero of the day. Karen remained where she was, hunched and broken, no longer the queen of the cul-de-sac. She didn't follow anyone home. She didn't shout another word. She just sat there, drowning in her silence. The officer returned to his cruiser, his parting words calm but firm. "Sir, take care of your dog. And thank you for keeping your cool." I nodded, watching as the flashing lights disappeared down the street, leaving only the golden wash of the setting sun across the neighborhood. For the first time in years, the street felt lighter. Free. I looked at my dog, smiling faintly. "Come on, boy. Let's go home." He wagged his tail once, falling into step beside me. As I walked back toward my house, I felt the eyes of the neighborhood still lingering on me, not in suspicion but in respect. They had seen the truth. They had seen Karen fall. And they had seen me stand firm. That was justice enough.